Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning to you. Thank you so much for keeping with us here on UBC TV. Welcome back from Weather and Nature with Molen Kenyana. Once again, I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonitono, and this is Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Now here we have a guest in studios. We discuss issues of national importance, and you're able to be part of the topic of discussion by simply using our various social media platforms. We also have a WhatsApp number where you can send a text message or a WhatsApp message. And I'll read it out and the guests will be able to respond to it. Now, 14th of June, Ugandans are expecting the national budget to be read. And of late it's done together with other members of the East African Committee. Usually Kenya reads their budget on the same date, Tanzania does, and Uganda does. And we expect our Minister, that is for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Honorable Matia Kasaja, to read it on behalf of His Excellency and on behalf of Ugandans, because of late the budget goes through a consultative process where many people are part of this process. And today I have one of the people that is usually at the center point of this budget, most when it comes to civil society organizations. And I want to look at this budget. Is it people-centered budget? Many a times you hear people talk about this is a pro-people budget. It's a budget for the people. Most at this time when prices of essential commodities are really high. And joining me this morning is the man himself, Julius Mukunda, happens to be the Executive Director of Civil Society, that is a Budget Advocacy Group. You're most welcome, Julius.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to be here. To talk about,
taken some time to see you.
To talk about budgets.
But when I definitely I meet with the budget is about.
Yes.
That is when we have to hunt for you because, you know, one interesting thing usually why I like having people from civil society is if there is any group that government considers in the budget process, apart from these local councils, and for them, with due respect to them, I may not expect so much from them. When it goes, because I've attended these consultations, yes, they invite councillors from what, then there is drinks, then they debate, then after budget, have we gotten value for money?
Then allowances.
Then allowances.
Then they go home.
Then they go home. But with civil society, you have the technical knowledge. This is a crop of learned people who are scrutinized, who are advocating for what they understand. Yeah. So most of the times why I get upset with you is you're part of this budget. When it comes out, then you see them again criticizing. Now I have you on set, Julius. First, let's begin by understanding, when you talk about this being a pro-people budget, or if we want to see if it's people-centered, we must understand if the people we're talking about really participate and their participation is relevant or it's just a mere process that government spends amounts of money on. Yet at the end of the day, it is the technical people that come up with what they give us and what we have to follow and look for the funds, and then they determine the expenditure.
Yeah, again, thank you so much. I think to go on the first you ask, Julius, you've been this thing, but when it comes out, you are making a lot of noise. It's a negotiation, really. It's a negotiation. You know, there are a number of forces that are there. We need this, we need that. This is not needed, this is needed. And you can even see that even the parliament itself, as it is debating now, they have reached at the point whereby they actually reallocate the money. Government submits a budget, Parliament gets in and cuts money from different sectors and reallocates and puts in other priority areas. So it's really a negotiation process, and if you are not very careful, you can lose everything. So it's a give and take. And because civil society, for us, we have a number of fronts we can engage, because we can sit with government, engage it, pick 2 things out of it, probably 5 have not come out. Then when we go to Parliament, we also pick maybe 1 or 2, and off we go. So it's an engaging process, it's a consultative process, and you rightly said, it's a consultative process. The budget of today, in terms of consultation, is not the same as the budget of 10 years ago. Today, by the time the budget comes out, you practically have known who is going to get what. And I think that's very key and very important, because it helps us citizens to follow up the money. So is this budget people-centered? And for us, that's the anchor as civil society organizations, as civil society budget advocacy group. We are looking at see whether, in simple terms, that the money that is allocated in the budget, whether it is actually going to directly benefit an ordinary person. I'll give a specific example. If we have a budget of 100 million, and the 70 of it is going in wage and non-wage for the technocrats, that budget is not benefiting an ordinary person. You are getting the remainder of the budget, and yet the whole concept, the whole idea of the budget is to develop the nation. You can never develop a nation if that nation has not developed its people. So first, for the first time, we've seen a budget that has prioritized human capital development. Human capital development is taking the first priority of our budget. It had never happened. What do we mean here? We are looking at education, we are looking at health, we are looking at creative awareness, mindset change. And I think for me, that is very critical and that is very important.
Now, even before you go any further, I love the word mindset change, and I was reading through the parish development model, and I saw mindset change as one of the pillars.
Now, between you and me, I had never thought mindset change is a serious issue until I faced people really where they consider they don't understand things at all. For example, vaccination. Somebody says, I don't want to get vaccinated. Why? No, I will die if I get vaccinated. And you're like, but you have a degree, a graduate, you think vaccination will kill you? Somebody said, yes, I might die, so I can't. That's the extent to which people are ignorant in terms of their welfare and their well-being. So that is mindset change we're talking about. So a parent, tell a parent, take a kid to school. I said, they will first have to grow crops, harvest. After harvesting, maybe that's when they will go to school. Or P7 is their university. And it takes a lot to convince that parent that, please, this child's future lies with the education system. Without it, they are totally wasted. So yes, we need mindset change, and we need to seriously invest in mindset change.
How is it going to be carried out? Because I'm seeing even in the budgets, getting a portion, even in all these aspects. But I'm wondering, is it going to be sensitization? Is it, Julius, because most of the times monies are allocated and you have this excitement. Good, you've talked about this time, salaries, ammunition, not being the top of what is spending, because you hear ministry has gotten this amount of money, then you clap. At the end of the day, it goes on allowances, salaries, and all that doesn't trickle down to them.
Exactly.
But even with mindset change, I think we need to scrutinize this deeper. How is this going to be carried out? When I look at the parish development model, so much money now, parishes are going to get about 100 million each parish.
Yeah, that's the big elephant in the room. Yeah,
and we are spending a lot into this new baby that we believe is going to do miracles. Yeah. That other projects like Entandikwa, wealth creation, and all that
do the
have failed. So how how is this going to be executed? Are you going to go to a village and invite people in case you're privileged to know?
Yes, I mean, mindset change. I think for me, you are asking the bigger question of is how is government prepared to roll out projects? And I think mindset change is among the projects, so many government projects. And I think our biggest challenge right now in the government is lack of preparedness to roll out projects. And therefore, mindset change might suffer the same problem like any other government program. Because, for example, the Auditor General is telling you that last year, only 40% of the projects were within timelines. That means that they were likely to be finished according to the date of completion, which means 60% of them were not. What does that mean? And he's telling you they are not because of one, lack of preparedness, you don't have a visibility plan, you have no right of way, so many things, experts we don't have. So even mindset has changed part of it. And I think we take it to the parish development model we talked about. When you asked, is the people-centered, is the budget people-centered? I say yes, because now we have $1 trillion for parish development model. This money is directed on ordinary person now down. So you say yes, there is some level of people-centeredness where a person would benefit for the money. So as government needs to prepare itself to deliver projects. I think for me that's the most important part. Don't
from the financial allocation.
Yes, because somebody says, I want to build a road. Fine, they give them the money, but before they started, they didn't have a physical plan or a visibility study.
There's a tree they didn't envisage of a plan.
The tree of a plan is still there standing, and they want big sums of money. So that is lack of and I'm glad. I mean, in a simple way, that is lack of preparedness. So you need, if you want to start a project, to say yes, I have the right of way. Everybody has been resettled, and I can hand over the area to the contractor to start the road. So I think as government as a whole must prepare itself, build the capacity to get ready to start any project. So the same thing with parish development model, for example. For 2 consecutive quarters, the Ministry of Finance has withheld the money for the parish development model. Not because the money is not there, but the money is there. But they said, please get prepared. Recruit parish chiefs. Let parish development committees be functional. And one of the things I was telling Minister of Finance, said, please, we beg you, don't release money to parish development model. If the parish development committees are not functional, if they are not existing, and of course, whether there are no parish chiefs. So you want to send money to a team that is ready to receive the money and start working. Otherwise, you send it, and next year we shall be here on this TV and telling the people, say, oh, our parish development money was stolen, simply because of lack of preparedness to execute a project. And I think for me, that is very critical and very, very important. So 2 things. It's centered because we have human capital development as the number 1 priority. Number 2 is we have the parish development model, funding, the $1 trillion. And number 3 is, I think, consultative processes have definitely increased. You have seen this year for the last 3 years. We've had the National Budget Month. Partly is to let the general public understand what the government is doing. Whether they are doing it right, or whether they're doing it wrongly, but it's time of accountability. So people are able to demand more information, ask the right questions, influence their parliamentarians and their councillors, tell them their problems, and I think for me, those 3 elements define how the people-centered budget, how the budget is people-centered, especially for this particular financial year. Do we have problems? Definitely yes. And one of it, you mentioned it here. The price increase. This budget, we started drafting this budget in December, before the prices. And I have not seen any adjustments to deal with fuel, which was being budgeted at 3,800, it's switching now at 5,000 and 6,000. So executing this budget is going to be very problematic and very difficult because the situation has changed. If you want to buy soap, if you want to, the commodity prices, they have all increased.
Now that has not been captured.
And it has not been captured. So you are likely to find sectors and MDAs really very constrained in terms of executing.
Now, Julius, let's also, when you talk about a budget that is people-centered, one of the things is that when the budget is being read out, all that people look for are proportions given. What takes first? What comes second? What comes third? Is it this time also security? Is it defense? Has it now gone on infrastructure? You know, what goes to health? That is what we basically look at. And now many technocrats, as long as they look at the portions given various sectors, one will tell us it's people-centered because education has taken third.
Okay.
You know, it's people-centered because maybe defense. We all enjoy security. We all enjoy infrastructure. But one of the things that we don't look at is ability for these funds to be spent very well for the ordinary person to benefit.
Yes.
Let's talk about health to
Yes.
begin with.
And
When you look at this budget, the health allocation, last time I saw members of parliament saying, instead of constructing more hospitals, let's go back to those that we have. They mentioned about 3 hospitals. They're in very sorry state.
referral hospitals.
Now you're talking about having more health center force. Why don't we look at these about 3 hospitals, even a health center force? Because we may want to be everywhere but nowhere.
Yes.
You visit a hospital, same goes to the education sector. What you call a school may not only be buildings.
No.
It may actually be the computers. We're talking about ICT sciences, but how many are going to study sciences? So the ability to transform these allocations to benefit
Into services.
into services. Do we have these monitoring monies that are put there, monitoring and supervision? Has this budget captured that element? Because most of the times you host this plan, they tell you, but we lack funds, Robert.
Yes.
If you are to go and monitor, if you are to go and supervise, we don't have that budget. As a civil society organization, you want accountability.
Definitely, yes.
You want service delivery.
Yes.
But to this accountability monitoring, how did you capture this in this coming budget?
And I think you're asking a very good question in terms of transferring the allocations into benefits and services. Because it's one way to say that agriculture has got 800 billion, and another to say what actually has that money done. And I think that's a very, very valid question. And it is the big elephant in the room. Why? Because in a government, and this is something I've been talking about, I said, look, it is very expensive for government to deliver a service. Tell government that please print an exercise book and distribute it to all the children in this country. The exercise book, which on the market street is costing 200, 300 shillings. Government will deliver that book at 20 times or 40 times. And you ask yourself, why does that happen? So the little money, which would have really covered so much, end up covering very little. Why? Because, and I say it, and for me what I've realized is that corruption in this country, misuse of resources in this country, is no longer an element of robbery. You pick a man and run away. No. It is planned for and it is executed. How? You plan to buy 10 exercise books, put an astronomical figure in the budget. It goes to Minister of Finance, it goes to Parliament, Minister of Finance looks at it, it is passed, goes to Parliament, Parliament appropriates and approves it, and you go out with your money and you go and buy the exercise books. So instead of buying 100 exercise books, you end up buying only 50 or 20 simply because the price you had quoted was extremely so high. So lack of a national price list is one of the big factors that is making that is preventing us from turning these allocations into better services. That's number one. Number two is, you rightly also said, a school is not buildings. A health center is not equipment. You just can't build a health center without what? It will not function. You can't put health center and you fail to plan for its staffing. It won't function. The same thing is, you have power, we have built the power dams, the Simba and the and Karuma, and you forget that you need to evacuate this power from the power dam up to the last consumer. So if we don't think through that value chain, the logic of the final consumer doesn't just need to see the dam, but need to see power lighting in the house, then we lose it. So the point is that when we are budgeting these allocations, let us look at what actually are we budgeting for. And when the government brought the program-based budgeting, we said yes. Why? When a kid is going to school in primary, they need to be immunized. So health now joins education to ensure that this kid is not sick. that mindset change, that the parent needs to understand that the girl child also needs to go to school. You see? And then education comes in to provide the teachers, the school materials, and then the classroom. That is, now the kid will go to school. Water will also actually come in to provide sanitation, water at school, clean water at school. So that concept must be budgeted for properly so that the kid goes to school. And I think for me is, as long as we don't have that, then we will keep on budgeting as usual. And that's why when the parish improvement model came, we jumped on it, because why? We knew that for the first time, an ordinary person is going to sit and decide how to use that particular money. People will even tell you and say, look, for us when the money comes, it's not about buying inputs, it's about marketing. We grow a lot of matoke, so we know in Kampala a bunch of matoke is at 30, but here we are selling it at 2,000. So we will get the money, hire a truck, take our matoke to Kampala, sell and bring back. So that's how, like the parish model is, looking at it, that people are determining how they can solve their own problems.
But Julius, our viewers, why I'm not excited in amounts allocated? Because when we talk about, is it a people-centered budget, one would think we mention figures, this is getting this. I cease to be excited about figures. That's why I'm driving into this ground to see what are those underneath. Now, one of the areas, Julius, that I want you also to speak about is what do we allocate to monitoring and supervision? And was this captured as a priority? One time I was speaking to a school inspector of a certain district I won't mention, Ministry of Education. And I was so much on this young man. Told him no. We can't have these fires. And at one time, Ministry of Education, coupled with police, came up with guidelines. Triple deckers not allowed. The list has a number of issues. But almost in a number of schools in that area, these were not there. I go to Chirudu Hospital. One time, a friend of mine had an accident in that area. He was rushed there. I saw on the notes board, Dr. So-and-so, is it doctor on call? There's what they write. Doctor on call, doctor. There were about 8 doctors that are supposed to be around that particular ward. Names given properly. I ask, where are these doctors? I said, Tebaliwo. I called a friend I won't mention, Ministry of Health. So, Robert, no, you can't say they are not doctors. Doctor so-and-so is around.
Get the end of the station.
Let me have their numbers and call. I called one and introduced, I'm so-and-so, a journalist. Said, give me 45 minutes.
Wow.
45 minutes, I saw the car, almost flying, getting to that. Now, when I ask this person that, you're in office, you allocate money, you have the people, but on ground they're not there. Why don't you have someone who monitors? And he told me, you see, with your budgets. That is a crucial factor that we don't have. Few inspectors to inspect the schools. This like Wachiso may have about 20,000, have about 5. In hospital, in all these projects, little do we give to these that can follow up. And that's the biggest challenge of government programs. Monitoring, supervision. That's where you wait for the state house corruption, you wait for this, you wait for that, and you ask, where was it? Because this is a crucial factor. It's not budgeted for most of the times or strengthened in terms of the budgetary process.
I think for me, in that perspective, the best thing that we need in this country is, of course, funding for the Auditor General's office, because he does the audit. And you can say maybe that's a post-mortem.
Sometimes the audit comes late. She does post-mortem. That is what annoys me.
Post-mortem. But it helps tell you that these things have happened. They shouldn't happen again. The other element you talked about inspectorate in schools, and I think it is one of the least funded areas in the budget. But at one time I interacted with a senior civil servant, and he said there used to be only one inspector in a school who would inspect all the schools without a vehicle. He said, but today, you find within a district there is a municipality like 4 other inspectors, that even the inspector in the municipality, I mean, we have some municipalities that are just one street. He's unable to inspect the schools within the municipality simply because he said he has no car. So I think for me, inspection, yes, we need the resources, but also is there a number of things we can do with the inspection. For example, I mean, if I was an inspector, one of the things I would rely on are the parents and the children in a school, whether teachers are teaching, whether they're not teaching. That's number one. Number 2 is we have so many civil society organizations doing service budget monitoring and service delivery tracking. Get to them and ask them and see what happens. They will provide all the information and then take a corrective action. But I think the biggest challenge in having a corrective action is that even with this existing information that things are going wrong, you find that there is little action taking place to prevent it. If there is something so difficult in this country is to fire a primary teacher, you cannot. Even when the evidence is just so much there, the best thing the cow can do on the district is transfer them from one school to another. Take that incompetence from school A to school B. But to fire them because of incompetence in discipline and the rest, forget about it. So because of that, you find that civil service really, they have relaxed because there isn't much you can do to push them out. And I think for me, that's one of the reforms that needs to be done. That you are employed because you have been given some key performance indicators. If you don't achieve them, please, there is an exit. Somebody else can be able to come and do some work. So I agree that funding for monitoring supervision is very important. Ministry of Finance has got a budget monitoring and analysis unit, and they do throughout the budget process. They do the monitoring of budgets. And some of us who are very keen in terms of budget, we're able to access this information and know projects that are not doing well, projects that are doing well, and are able to engage the policymakers about these particular projects so that they can be able to improve. And I'm happy this time around. I've seen Parliament really taking a very keen note on the performance of our projects, which I think for me is very important, because when the project is not finished, you'll not realize the benefits of that particular project in time. Look at the Busegampiji Express, 5 years down the road. We commissioned it 5 years ago. Down the road, it's still in the making. So we have not got benefits. And so there are other more important projects that
we still haven't benefited.
We have benefited
so Julius, what you've talked about and what many talk about is the fact that, yes, we have where we can look at gaps, but unfortunately that most of these come when it's maybe too late. Last week, Parliament came up with a number of reports. Very interesting reports. Very, very interesting.
They have been very busy these days.
When I read through the Nakawana group, I almost poured a cup of tea. I was out of shock. Now this is damage already done. When I look through damage already done. When you look, and at the end of the day, much as these monies don't return to the coffers, that the Ugandans don't get the services they're supposed to be getting. Now, what mechanisms can we put as stopgaps? Enough postmortem is done. Today we are looking at if it is people-centered. If you come after 2 years or 1 year, for the damages done in the education sector, for the damages done in this expenditure, at the end of the day, the purpose of this budget may not be achieved.
I mean, and you are very right, is that I think our biggest challenge is really we have an implementation challenge in this country. We have the best, the best people in offices, but when it comes to implementation, it becomes a different matter. And one of the things I think that we need to do to ensure that we realize is really to enforce sanctions. You are an accounting officer. It is very clear. Don't commit government if you have no budget line. It's very clear. You go ahead and commit government to pay. Yet you know very well that amount of money, you don't have it in the budget. And next year, you still become an accounting officer. You are really encouraging indiscipline in public finance management. And therefore, our domestic areas are ballooning. 4 trillion government owes people and is unable to pay them, simply because of some errant accounting officers who have gone ahead to commit government, yet we don't have the money. And what does that mean? It basically means that you've supplied the government beans and posho, and they have not paid you for 2 to 3, 5 years down the road. And then you think that you are developing a private sector in this country, because they say private sector is the engine of growth in this country, and you think you are developing it? No, you are not. You're actually incapacitating it. So we need really to enforce sanctions. That if somebody has not fulfilled or has done wrong, put them aside. Let's get the best people to execute this work. And if we are not going to do that, I can tell you, even our beloved parish development model that we talk about is going to face the same fate. And really, it is so, it will be sad that we shall be here not having anything to say about parish development model, because we know that the money went into a bottomless pit and it just disappeared. So one of the things that civil society we have tried, we are actually arranging ourselves is we are going to have a very serious monitoring and supervisory role on the parish development model, to the extent possible that we want to ensure that when the money comes in, and the beauty now is that we know when the money comes in. When the money comes in, we want to know, is the parish development model, is the parish development committee functional? Does it exist? Is the parish chief existing? Is it there? So for me, once that is done, then now we begin to understand who has actually benefited from the parish development fund. So that we know the people that have benefited are not the dead, the people that have benefited are within the area, so that at the end of the day, people are able to follow up and understand that this is the public money that can be used properly. So I think civil society organizations, one of the things that we will be engaging on serious series around monitoring, monitoring of the parish development model funds. The other element I think for me is educating the public. We have a problem of people knowing this budget is for government, it is not mine. And I really tell them, if this is your money, we have employed these people to manage our affairs, so they need to provide accountability. So, and for me, I'm happy that we have this national budget month, for example, where the public is going to know what actually is happening within their budget. Whether it is inadequate or not, let us know what is there and follow it up. Whether there is little money, a shilling, we shall follow it up to the last point. And I think the
only challenge is how empowered are you to do that following up.
And we are, that's why I'm telling people, say, we are government. No, it's not. It's no, because we have seen it happening. We have seen communities making a change in their areas.
Now, Julius, before I go to some questions coming in, I also want us to look at this budget. There's so much that government has put billions into recovery from COVID-19. SMEs, almost at all levels. Go to Uganda Development Bank. Matia Kasaja was so sure, plus all the technical part, of course, looking into putting money for these struggling companies, struggling businesses, to be able to get back to their feet. Do we see this practical? During COVID-19, I think it was around the second lockdown, I hosted Kasita, that's Kampala Capital City Traders, and they told me, you're a journalist, prove that our members got this money.
I think for me is, during the COVID pandemic, it was a bonanza for everybody, really. If you read the reports, it was just a bonanza for everybody. But we pushed, and I'm glad that when you say money is going to UDB, I mean, it's not going for your circle. It's not going for your trader on the street. Even looking for UDB, I mean, for your trader, it's...
So you're looking at SMEs.
So we said we wanted small and medium enterprises. And we are glad that the government has put in 200 billion for small and medium enterprises. They give loans between 2 million up to 40 million, something like that. Targeting those ones. And I think for me, I would have wished that one is tripled even, because most 90% of our economy really is around small and medium enterprises. So that's a good thing. And of course, government has got a Myoga, which they have put in. And me, I usually argue that why don't you get a Myoga money and you put it in the parish development fund, a model, because it's almost the same. And also there is the Uganda Microfinance Support Center. And that one actually goes directly to those small circles in different districts. So yes, there are those particular funds that are going in those particular areas, and I think my only problem is it is so little compared to the problem. You want to put 200 billion in UDB, 500 billion in UDB. Okay, fine, but the people you are targeting there might even have the capacity actually to go and get this money somewhere else. It could have been a split so that you have so many people benefiting from this. And once you do that, you are really boosting aggregate demand in the economy. You are making people spend, you are making people buy, buy products. So my only challenge is that it is little. I would have wanted to see more investment in this particular area.
Now, a question for you here. The national budget for this year is not going to favor Ugandans, but government itself, because you can't force people to contribute 20 trillion when you have hijacked the goods. Well, I don't have the name there, but that is his view of that. Then, good morning, UBC. Thanks for the program. In order to ensure successful implementation of government programs at grassroots level, there is need to institute honest people to support the monitoring. Thank you. That is Maurice Okuchu from Lila. Thank you so much, Maurice Okuchu from Lila City. Let's first do with those two.
Government has hijacked. I don't know what
what he looks at the domestic revenue expected. Uganda to contribute towards this year's budget, and it looks at that as a big figure, about 25 trillion.
Yeah, I mean 25 trillion. But I think for me, we have even the capacity even to contribute to fund our budget. I think we have the capacity to fund our budget. And what do I mean? Out of the 48 trillion that we are talking about, it's only 30 that we can allocate, because the rest is already committed debt related. I think we can raise 30 trillion in this country if only each and every one of us pays their fair share of taxes. And for me is, we don't even, and I'm glad this time we have not introduced new taxes or tax rates, but try to expand the taxation base. Ensure that let me give you an example. Rentals. For example, the rental tax. It's highly underperforming. A rental in Nakawa, in Rubaga, if you are renting, and there is a person in Chisora and Kotido is also renting, we should all be on the tax register. All of us should be on the tax register. But we start with Nakawa and then we remain there and Rubaga, but we have not expanded to go to all other districts. And yet we know urbanization is taking place in these particular districts. So why don't we invest? Why don't we invest in collecting rental taxes? So really for me is that, as government really, is that we are still so slow in investing in URA to collect for us more taxes. Of hiring honest people, I agree, 100%. Is that we need to pay people well. That's number one. The salaries of our public servants is really, really ridiculous. We need to pay them well and then demand performance from them. Without that, I can tell you, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, I want to thank you so much. Julius, in a minute, let me have your final remarks regarding the coming budget and, of course, a word for Ugandans to really be more interested. I want to use the word more interested in banning for service deliveries, knowing what they have been allocated. One time I was in Guna, there was a notice board of how much money has been sent for what particular project. I was like, yes, since then I've never seen it elsewhere.
Yes, and I think finally for me, one is that I encourage Ugandans. Please let's wait for the budget speech. Let us all listen in and see how much it is coming to our way. Number two is, please, that school belongs to you, does not belong to President Museveni. If it's functioning, it is for you. If it's not functioning, you are the one who's losing out. Get involved in monitoring projects. You don't need a license to monitor a project. No. You have a right as a citizen to see whether the school and the health center is functioning. But also look out for the national budget month activities which are coming up with Ministry of Finance, Parliament, and our civil society organizations. We are trying to popularize how this budget is going to benefit an ordinary person, and it's only then that we can understand the challenges, the gaps, and the strength that we have as a nation as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Julius Mukunda, who is the Executive Director, that is Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, that brings together a number of society organizations for that time. Well, I want to urge you that please pick interest. And also,
yes,
fellow Ugandans that are in the implementation process, don't see houses, don't see arcades, don't see brand new cars when these monies are allocated. See the need to serve the country, because what goes wrong may come back to you. If you're supposed to staff that hospital, you never know. Maybe one time it is where you have to go. COVID proved to us where no body would be flown outside of the country, but had to get treatment here in hospitals, maybe where you could have participated in something fishy. Have a lovely day. God bless you.
Yeah.
Mirinda.
Grab yourself an ice-cold bottle of Mirinda Orange at any shop or supermarket near you. Mirinda Orange, the taste that makes you go OMG.